Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 20th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. First item we have tonight is the adoption of the minutes of the Council meeting held February 6th, 2017. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Beale, second. Councillor Salter, moved by Councillor Burton. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favour? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. We have one change to our agenda this evening. Unfortunately, the Broombusters delegation was unable to attend due to illness, so the agenda must be amended accordingly. For the recommendation, I have the recommendation that the item 3B regarding a delegation from Broombusters Invasive Plant Society be removed and the February 20th Council meeting agenda be approved as amended. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Salter. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. So, we have two delegations this evening. And the first delegation is the Brant Wildlife Festival. And I see that they're here. So Michelle Harnett and Lynne Brooks, please come to the microphone and we welcome. You've got 10 minutes and we're looking forward to your presentation. I've seen the written agenda and it looks awesome. More. Pass those on. Oh, you all got copies? Okay. I've got a copy. I've got a copy, thank you. So welcome Lynne and welcome Michelle. Please proceed.
Great, it's good to be here. We are both here to give you an update on the Brant Wildlife Festival that's going to be held between March 18th and April 17th. About 4 weeks, but there's a core period of time between April 1st and April 9th to satisfy various needs to condense it in the center, but then again, following the wildlife patterns, it's a little bit longer because of all the events and activities that are going on. To my right is Michelle Harnett, and she was brought on board partway through the beginning process, and she is the Community Brant Wildlife Festival Coordinator, or Facilitator. There are a number of activities involved, some new ones, some really interesting new happenings are going on with this 2017 festival. There will be a number of events, about 25 or more events will be held this year. We have some new community agriculturalists that will be involved. That will be pretty interesting. The Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association has been absolutely wonderful to work with and has been instrumental in promoting and advertising and assisting. Blaine and others have just done a fantastic job. We also will be having articles in the PQB News, 5 different articles. This time, one will be about community, another is about land, another is about sea, another is about migration. So a lot to help educate and let people know of all the neat things going on here. I'll stop at this point, pass it on to Michelle, and then I'll be talking with you later about some of the other activities.
Thank you, Lynne, and good to be here. So as part of the community effort to bring ownership of the festival back to the island and to the region, I've been brought onto the team to sort of coordinate the, help out with coordination of the festival this year. In coordination with Lynne and, of course, the Nature Trust of BC. So I'm also the project coordinator for the Amazing Places project of the Man Arrowsmith Biosphere region. So we're going to cover a little bit more of the schedule that we've just handed out to you, but I'm also going to introduce the Biosphere region because Parksville is almost smack in the middle of it. And we've got some amazing places that we've designated within your region that I just want to bring your attention to. So as you may know, the UNESCO Biosphere Reserves are designated model regions around the globe that serve as excellent examples of places where people are living and working well together and in harmony with nature. So this is where we're all living. And Amazing Places, the project aims to highlight the ecological significance of this region's most beloved amazing places. So maybe you saw our public nomination process last September to have the residents and visitors tell us what their favorite places in the region are. And we had 4 places designated in the vicinity of Parksville and Oceanside. So you can see up there on the screen, these are Rathtrevor, Top Bridge, Regional Trail, Parksville Community Park, and Englishman River Falls, which maybe is a little bit outside of the vicinity, but close enough, so I threw it on there. The sign is already up at Rathtrevor, and Top Bridge, Parksville, and Englishman are in the works. But all these signs will be in the ground, highlighting the ecological significance of the area by the end of March. And March 30th, we're having our official launch as part of the Brant Wildlife Festival as one of the events, and you can see that on the schedule there. It'll actually be in this building. So the project is relevant to the Brant Wildlife Festival because in line with the festival wants to again highlight the ecological significance of the area, educate visitors and residents on all the amazingness of the area, especially as far as wildlife and nature and community that's going on here. The project is very much aligned with that. And yeah, that's it. So both of the, I thought I had another point there, but I covered them all. Let's see. These are our signs up at Rathtrevor Beach that you can see there. And, oops. Oh, I had a map in there, but I guess it's gone now. Anyway, I'll pass it back to Lynne. Lynne's got a few other things that she'd like to cover.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd like to say, and probably everyone here is aware of it, it's a matter of spreading the word, we really, really do live in an absolutely amazing part of the world. I mean, on the whole planet, this is one of the real environmental or ecological hotspots. There's so much variety from the sea, we've got little islands all over, estuaries, rivers, lakes, you name it, it's here. Even snow in the winter, which we don't advertise. So there is a lot here, and it's been recognized nationally. We've got various national wildlife management areas right along our coast. We also provincially, provincially, as you know, this is the wildlife management area. These are provincially managed areas. The Nature Trust of BC manages for the province the wildlife areas that you see in black up there. They're highly significant on a national and an international level, these particular areas where we live. And I think sometimes in our busy day-to-day lives, I know for years I didn't realize how spectacular, how unique this place is in many ways. And it's something really to be proud of. The Parksville, Qualica Beach, this area, we have something that other places, you know, up and down our particular Vancouver Island coast, they're just not there. And this is something really hot. It's a real draw for tourism, and as you've read maybe in some of the recent papers, tourism is a real growing thing, and in our area, it's something we can capitalize, and it's not extractive, it's not damaging. It's very important to have the timber industry and the fisheries well managed and such, but this is something that we all can do on the coast that will be of benefit to us and to wildlife if we manage things properly. So that's really kind of a neat challenge and also draw that we have that's unique. The Brant, as I think folks here are fairly familiar with, but it is a major stopover not only for Brant, but for hundreds of thousands of other species of birds that do that long migration from Mexico on up to Alaska and on around, and others not as long a distance. It is extremely important. It's not a matter of they just choose to be here. It's one of the few places that meet their needs. They have to be in this area or they will go extinct, period. I mean, it's that simple. So, okay, so that's a challenge on one hand, but also it's a real benefit. They have to have that protein-rich roe that comes from the herring that come during that period of time. If they don't pack on their weight and leave in good weight, good condition up north, they will not be successful egg-laying Brant, and eventually their numbers will dwindle, and that's it. So that's why all the thing about dogs south of Asia, there's some real reasons for it. It's to help the species survive, and many others that are there with it. wildlife have been here historically, ever since the glaciers left. The First Nations have used our area historically. We know that well and lived within that environment. Of course, it was a different number of people, quantities of people, time, and all of that. But this is a historically important place, both for wildlife, for people, and then the fisheries and the timber industries, very important region for that. And now, as I say, the tourism is the next real big opening door. It's here already. I think we can open it wider. So the Brant Wildlife Festival is something to help alert people locally that, okay, here's that time of year, that very special time of year, something to be celebrated, and also to focus on bringing more tourism to our area to enjoy that and to experience it. Alrighty, the schedule of events that you folks have has been put together over the last couple of months. It started out with several meetings that Kim was at, and our mayor was there, and Leanne Salter was there, and a whole lot of other people. And it was, well, should we do this? Can we do this? And boy, it was a great response, and our communities have been quite involved, especially Parksville. It's really jumped in and done all sorts of good things. And the scheduled events that you have, I'd like to point out a few that might be really good for ways that to support the Brant Wildlife Festival. And Michelle's going to talk about a few of others. But we have a speaker coming in from Vancouver. He's internationally known as a speaker. He's going to talk about the migration of life. And it's not Brant or the birds only, but it's all life, the whole migration patterns. It's more of a national, international perspective. So I highly recommend, if it's possible, to go to that. It should be quite good, quite interesting. If any of you are interested in learning about basic bird ID, okay, you have feeders, you have birds, they're all brown, right? There are ways to tell them apart. So it may be of interest to others. There is also the celebration of the Celebrate Nature dinner, another good way to support by going there. The cost of it is, I think, $35. Basically covers the meal and rental of the space. And it's just, again, to see what's happening and to thank some of the people that are involved. So that may be of interest. And our businesses, well, I'll let you take that part out, about ways we can support.
Yeah, sure. There's been a lot of support, or at least a lot of interest in showing support of the festival from tourism groups and local businesses. I've spoken with Kim Burton, as well as the director of the Chamber in Qualicum Beach, and we've created Brant foam core cutouts as an idea. Have you seen them? So this is an idea just to have the Brant silhouette be a symbol of Brant support and of the Brant Wildlife Festival. So shopkeepers, I've given them all out now, but if anybody wants some more, just let me know. We can have more made. Shopkeepers can either hang them in their store, hang them outside their store, put them in a window. Same with the schedule. It just shows that I'm a Brant Wildlife supporter. Some other ideas are having local businesses have just a featured item on discount, maybe a scarf or wildlife-related bag, something like that, bird feeder, offering or donating a small item or monetary to the fundraiser on April 8th at the Bayside, and then maybe even just having a little window display of wildlife-specific things. And I mean, the options are endless, whatever people feel is appropriate to their own business or their own whatever their business is about. And I think that's it.
Again, Parksville has been extremely generous, helpful, and it's majorly important with the financial donation to the Brant Wildlife Festival. It does cost money to do it, especially the newspaper publication or the advertisement there, the various things that are run off and such. So just thank you for that, because that is majorly important. But we're also looking at other ways to make it self-sustainable within our own communities. So in the future, we're looking at possibilities where there are certain groups that are involved, like some of the activities here will be donating 5, 10, 15% of any earnings that they get back to the fund for next year's Brant Wildlife Festival. So we're looking for those sorts of opportunities to make it more self-sustaining. And it is, if people jump on board, it is a really good way for businesses. It's just one more way to sell those scarves, hats, or outdoor clothing, or whatever it is that people can be creative. The books, they're all about wildlife at some of our bookstores. They can have them on display. So there you go. If there are any questions, I don't know if anyone has any. Yes.
Well, thanks very much, and this looks like a really exciting time. I just have one quick question before I ask members of the council to jump in. Are these going to be placed in business windows and all over town, or?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is continually it's kind of keeps evolving because more events keep being added.
It gets longer.
Yeah. So this was just updated this morning. So this is all the events that we have now confirmed, or the details for it. But yes, this is available for shopkeepers to post in the window.
Have you got some we can place here in City Hall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a few extras.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get back to you later. Thanks very much. It looks like a very invigorating time. Council?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, it does look like a great program, lots of choice, and I've already checked off a few things, and I'll be putting them on my calendar. Thank you. I was curious. You certainly mentioned the importance of tourism and the attraction for people to come here and experience the nature here. Do you also work with the Tourism Association in order to promote the Brant Festival offerings beyond this area? Because the Tourism Association has access to marketing outside of the Oceanside area, whether it be Victoria or off the island. So I was just curious to know what kind of a relationship you have with the Tourism Association.
First of all, excellent. Secondly, you've been working most directly with Blaine.
That's a great question. I'm going to ask Lynne that question. I've mostly been in communication with him about local, like PQB News, and his own online calendar. But I haven't. It hasn't come up to talk more, far and wide, say on the island or even off the island, about this kind of thing. But that's something that I'll bring up with him. Go ahead. Take the mic.
Yes, from our earlier meetings, Blaine very definitely was going to be publicizing this very broadly, not only here locally, nationally, but also internationally, so that people know this is happening, to really keep building this. There are other places that have things like gull days, eagle days, sandpiper days, anyway, pelican days. So it is something that is a draw, and some of these are huge. They bring in thousands of people. We just need to make it as attractive as possible and promote it. So thank goodness for the modern media to do that. Click of a button.
Thank you. No, that's great to know. And I know that if it is on their calendar and what's going on, then in fact it is reaching beyond our boundaries. I also had a question about the estuary and the eelgrass, and we certainly understand that the Canada geese over a number of years have really caused a lot of damage to the plants in the Englishman River estuary, and I know that there will be work and is continuing to have work to restore that. Are you aware of what level of impact this has had on the Brant at this time? You mentioned the herring roe, but I understand that they need eelgrass, and I just wondered what you could say about that.
Sure. Well, the herring, poor little guys, you don't want to come back as a herring. The herring lay their eggs all over, hopefully, some sort of a substrate. Even the First Nations people, they knew about that, and they would put the branches of hemlocks in the water, in the seawater, so the eggs would catch on that, and then they would just haul them in that way. So the eggs adhere readily to a substrate. Eelgrass is great. Different seaweeds are great. They're fine. It attaches. Now, as far as our eelgrass in this area, it is really endangered. It's been damaged. As you know, the Canada geese not only graze, they're like sheep and cattle difference. They graze, they pull up the roots, and so that's the end of the plant. It's not just the top. The Brant just, chomp on the leaves that are out and about. There is a study, some research being done at the Marshall-Stevenson area. They fenced it off to compare the difference, and there is a difference where it's protected from the Canada geese. There's more growth, it's more vigorous. I was involved with the Christmas bird count, and there were lots of Canada geese. Then also the Canada goose count that took place on January 21st, I think it was. And the numbers were way down, but the Christmas bird count, the numbers were up of the Canada geese. So that's about a month apart. They're still out there, but any dent that's made will help the estuaries recover, as well as keeping them clean, as well as not, trampling in the estuary areas, because, it's basically packed mud, and as it gets disturbed, it washes out. And the smolt don't have anywhere to hang out before they're big enough to go into the sea itself. So protecting those estuaries and the eelgrass and everything else that's involved, because it's the bugs that fall in the water that the little salmon smolt eat. So there has to be something growing there to feed this. Okay, does that, okay.
Who's next? Was it Councillor Oates? Did you ever hear that? No? Anybody else? Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you for the presentation. That was really well done, both of you, and I know how hard you both worked. Lynne, Michelle, Del, so many people on the committee that have worked so hard on this. So really looking forward to the Brant Festival and the spring, what is it, the spring festivities? Spring celebration.
Yeah, spring celebration of nature.
There we go. And I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you for all that you are doing for this.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. We'll see you all at Brant in the Bay on that freezing morning.
Sure. I'd just like to echo what Councillor Salter just said, and I want to remind everybody that the Amazing Places launch is in this center. It's the community center. I'm sorry, it's next door. At 6:30 on March the 30th. So that'll be something to watch. I have a question for you. On all of these tours, I recognize what they are except one. What's the forest bathing tours? Is that what I think it is?
Maybe not what you hope it might be. No, actually, that question came up at a meeting I was at midday today, and I was promised it had nothing to do with bathing or nudity, but it was a matter of bathing oneself in the sensuous experience of being out in nature, the smells, the sounds, the colors. So that's what it's about. I did ask them too. I wasn't
thinking of nudity. I was thinking of just places to swim. But thanks very much for clearing that up. Anyway, thank you once again for all the great work that you do, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegation is the Greater Nanaimo Cycling Coalition. We have a presentation by Leo Boon and Peter Stary of the Greater Nanaimo Cycling Coalition. Welcome. And gentlemen, you have 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Turn the microphone on, please. Just press the button.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you again. We're looking forward to a good spring, and we definitely want to participate in, maybe even go with some groups to these wonderful events that we just saw. My colleague here is Peter Stary on the technical committee and on the Oceanside Committee of GNCC. We're here to talk a little bit about the Master Transportation Plan. As you were aware, the Oceanside Cycling Coalition has incorporated in the GNCC, and we take care of the entire RDN. And we're active on making active transportation, to the forefront of all of the communities. And there's a lot of objectives that we're trying to do with our Oceanside Committee, and we're working on that for the next couple of years to make improvements on that. So why we're here tonight is we were pleasantly happy to be invited to the open house on December the 1st for the final draft of the Master Transportation Plan, and we attended, and we also wrote a 5-page commentary that we gave to staff and sent to Mayor and Council. So I'll just read a little bit out of that so that we get the some idea of what we experience. So we're very happy with this master transportation plan. So as I said, we represent cycling throughout the regional district of Nanaimo, and we are very happy that the city of Parksville is moving towards finalizing a transportation plan that recognizes active transportation, such as cycling, walking, including the use of mobility aids, such as wheelchairs and scooters, as an important component. As noted in the Parksville Master Transportation Plan, walking and cycling provide many benefits, including public health and fitness, and decreased energy consumption and emissions, and reduced traffic congestion, and as well parking demand. Improved walking and cycling conditions also supports various business, including retail, recreation, and tourism. The plan has a number of positive statements, and there is much to like in the plan as written. So some of the highlights are that it makes great recommendations for transportation network improvements. It considers all modes of transportation, including the future requirements for those modes. It makes great recommendations for policy improvements, such as active transportation policy and a number of other ones, including traffic calming policy. And the city is recommending that to encourage schools and assist schools to develop safe routes to school plans. And then it uses particular things that we cyclists really always like, such as elephant's feet along zebra crossings, or pedestrians crossing, as you call that. And then we also, looked at how the city hopes to, do planning and funding for this particular plan, and that's always, very important. So, as you probably realize, is that we've been working for a number of years of getting both the federal government and the provincial government to make some changes in infrastructure funding. And as you've noticed in the transit now, we've gone from a 33%, to a 50, 33, and 17% contribution. So that means that now the city, instead of looking at a 33 or a 50% or 100% funding of infrastructure, you can now be looking at a 17%. So we can continue to work on that, both federally and provincially, to get that done. But we also hope that you yourself would ask our federal government to look at that, to look at active transportation, and to look for that kind of funding, so that you actually can build active transportation. Okay? So when we look at bike network placement, because we're cyclists at heart, we look at the 5 E's, and the 5 E's is that we look at the engineering, we look at the educational component. That is very important, and that's really what we work on the educational component. Same for the encouragement, and then we look at enforcement, and the last one is evaluation, which just has fallen off there on the back. So, as I said, we're keen cycling advocates and educators, and we're also experts in placemaking, urban development, and sustainable transportation. We work with a network of specialists. I have one sitting here right next to me who has been 33 years into engineering. We have planners, we have psychologists, etc., and we get all that information, and look at the best solutions. So, looking closely at the cycling infrastructure in this particular plan, we noticed that there were a few discrepancies. So, some portions of that were a little confusing, so we looked at it and we wrote that in the report. And those details we want to discuss with staff. It's not on this particular level. We want to go over all of those things. But it's important because when you go and do stuff in a city, it's important to do it right the first time, because it costs a lot more if you have to redo it as if it's not working. So we've done a bunch of design recommendations, and we asked for a couple of changes. And also we recommend that, I know the city follows the TAC guidelines, which are the Canadian standard. We also recommend that we look at NATCO, which goes a little broader. Okay, so far on that. So other than that, we're very happy with the plan, and we think that we need to move ahead to get everybody interested. So one of the things that GNCC does is that we do a lot of educational stuff. So as you can see, this is what most cities look like. They have about 1% to 10% of people that actually cycle in your community now. And what this plan is working on is that blue, the 53%. Those are the people that are interested in cycling but just don't feel it, that it's safe enough or not comfortable enough, or, it just doesn't do it. So that's why we need to look at what we make changes to. So right now, this is what happens in your community. It's as though that when we come with groups, even the few groups of cyclists and that 1%, this is what we are faced with, is that there is not enough parking. It's addressed to a certain extent in your plan, but it is really a big problem in your community. And we love to come to this community and stimulate the economy. This happened to be just downtown Nanaimo. This happens twice a day, 5 days a week. We come out there with various groups, and we're all, spending money in the businesses. Here we are again in Parksville, and this was the group. So you can see there was not a lot of parking outside of this establishment. Here we are. I don't know what Qualicum Foods spends on their landscaping, but we certainly are not improving that status. Like there's a rack for 5 bicycles, and we come there with groups of 25 on a weekly basis. So that's what we need to do, because we like to do this, right? We cycle, but we eat. So we like to stimulate the economy. So the intelligence says you need to have the ability to adapt to change. So you got to change that. So going back again to that 1 to 10%, right, that we have. Why we're doing this? Well, we want to promote physical activity. Right now, 42% of our provincial budget goes to healthcare, and a lot of that is to unnecessary, problems that we have, because they can be easily diminished if we are active. In order to be active, you need to have neighborhoods that have sidewalks. You need to have a decent system of a bike network, and you need to have transit. And as you can see in all those numbers, like people who take transit, live better. People who be able to walk better. So that information is all there. And these are, for cycling, is all the things that, you improve on when you have that infrastructure in place. Okay? So for those who don't cycle yet, I know that I carry some extra weight, so I can't wait till the spring is here, because I want to lose that 13 pounds, which is your average person losing. That's what an average person loses, in the first year. So most importantly, what we work on is with our kids in our communities. So right now, over 90% of your kids gets bused or driven to school, and sometimes it's just a zoo out there. So less than 10% actually between the age of 3 and 17 cycle to school or the library or whatever. Okay, and as a result, we have 26% of our population, school population, that is obese, and about 60% that are called overweight. So it's no wonder we've gone from lots of people cycling and walking to school, to next to none. So this is what we do. We do these kind of sessions with schools, with daycares, which is all great. We get the education out. We get the kids interested. We teach them in bike rodeos. We teach them in bike classes. They're all having fun. But in the end, they have to deal with this. because there are no bike lanes and parents say it's too dangerous. So here you get an activity that's really illegal because they're cycling across and cycling on the pedestrian, on the sidewalk. So, and that's what we want to prevent. So it's important that we communicate and sit down with staff to solve these issues and to solve that also with the schools so that parents are happy the way kids can go back and forth to school or other places. Okay? We don't want to see any news like this, no bike lane. We don't want people to be negative. We want to have a positive community here. That means that when you build, it needs to be better than this. Okay? It's nice to have that strip of grass to the right, but the cyclists really wanted a little wider and that concrete gutter is really not the bike lane. Okay? So it's very narrow. So it's important that we use standards and also listen to cyclists what's needed. I'd rather see this. Okay? If we want to have plants, then make planters like this and make that kid feel safe. So, be like me, stubborn about our goals, but flexible about your methods. Okay? Not everything has to be a certain way. Let's see if we can find other ways. So, again, going back to the 5 E's, this is my last point. You've done already some great work here. Okay? But as I have highlighted there, enforcement is one of the things. I was here on the weekend. Unfortunately, it was a bit rainy, and I used to be in that 1% of the cyclists. I go out at any time in any place. I've moved to the 9%. I only come out when the sun comes out. So I drove. But you can see these are all vehicles on your new bike lane on Pym Street. This is below the school. This is above the school on the one other end. And these are all, I know people live there, but they have plenty of room in their driveways. This is what we call laziness. So power is gained by sharing knowledge. We're here. We would like to sit down with the community and look at what is all possible. We're suggesting that you look at creating either an active transportation advisory committee or a bicycle advisory committee, or there's lots of options and there's lots of information that we can provide you to with mandates and how you can all do that, because we do it already in 4 or 5 other communities. Okay, both on the island and off the island. Okay, let's round it up. If you have any questions, we're here.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to make a commentary. My grandkids live in Edmonton, and I go there in the wintertime. There's always a couple of kids in grade school that go use their bikes in the wintertime. They've got these special handlebars that keep their hands warm. They go into the handlebars.
Yep.
Amazing. I couldn't believe it. Okay, members of council, starting off with Councillor Burton.
Thank you for your presentation, but I want to tell you, you lost me when you had people trampling on landscaping. You need to expand your education to your members to teach them to be more respectful of other people's property.
Yeah, but we have asked the manager of Quality Foods what he says just park them there, and so we do, because the rack that's there is good for 5 bikes, and when you come with 25, and we eat at their establishment, we're putting a couple of $100 there in that business every time we come. So we'd love it if that, this is not the right council. This would be, something for Qualicum Council to say, okay, let's look at how we can improve something on that. And I just brought it as an example on what you get. Because we have the same at other establishments where they don't like to park your bike right, against the building or another. But you come there to do business, and for a retailer, it behooves them that they help those who come and spend the money at their establishment, that they at least accommodate them. I mean, the first thing that they'll ask is for car parking, but they will definitely not ask for bike parking. And it's important that, you know, both is done. Thanks.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the presentation. May I ask as well, you've got contact information here as well, so it's also possible for instance, our engineering department or others to get a hold of you for some follow-up information or setting up meetings or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, I was here Thursday on another matter, and I actually walked in, and I did visit the engineering department, but they were busy. They're a small group, and they're very busy, and you know, like they have lots on. So I understand that. I brought out an invitation. We have been asked both by the city of Port Alberni, by the manager and the city not the city engineer, the city planner. They're hiring a new city engineer to come in there and do a workshop, specifically about bike lanes. And the city of Nanaimo has asked us to do a workshop specifically on the transfer of how do you go from a multi-use trail back into the normal road system and vice versa as one of the modules. They've suggested that we also talk to other communities, such as the Oceanside communities, if the engineering departments would be interested in participating, you know, and listening and hearing how we, you know, solve those particular issues. So the invitation is open.
So in that case, that the possibility of, for instance, someone from our staff joining in with that, with them at the time. And yes, I can appreciate that, especially those transition zones, that can be a little bit trickier. Can I just ask, you want to say something as well? I'm also curious if you can go ahead. You mentioned the education piece, and I know that when we've spoken before, you mentioned that, and you shared with me something that you had prepared for School District 68, which is the Nanaimo area, and that following that year that you may be able to come, let's say, to our district or elsewhere, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah.
Can I go back to your initial question and then pass it back to Leo to answer the education piece? Providing facilities for cycling is not easy because you're starting from a built environment that doesn't necessarily accommodate cycling, and you're trying to fit something in. So the devil's really in the details. It's got to be done right. And as Leo said, we'd love to work with you, with staff, and there's different models to do that. Some municipalities have active transportation or cycling advisory committees. Others, North Vancouver, actually all the North Shore municipalities are a good example of this. They work with their local cycling advocacy organization, the parallel to the Greater Nanaimo Cycling Coalition, and so staff work cooperatively with volunteers, and once a year, or more often if needed, the North Vancouver cycling advocates make a presentation to council to just keep them informed of the types of things they've been working on with staff and the type of input that they've provided. So that's another model, and we'd be happy to interact with your staff in any way that works for Parksville.
All right, on the education part. So we've been working with School District 68 on a number of initiatives. We tried to go into in individual schools, and then we tried to go through the administration itself. Once there was a shortfall, they wanted to talk to us about active transportation because they want to eliminate some busing. So now they actually talk to us. But we already had the planning, and we already had the program 2 years ago. And basically what we're trying to do is from kindergarten up, introducing cycling. both walking and cycling into the school system so that it becomes part of a lifestyle, so that the kids continue with that. And the entire curriculum also goes into higher grades, where they at grade 8 and 9 will start to do bike repair courses, and that they also become mentors of the younger kids. So that's what happens back. That also prevents bullying from older kids over for younger kids. So you get a lot more cooperation between the different grades. And then for the top grades, they actually go into planning. So they go and plan a city that has active transportation. So those are all elements of what we're trying to do. It's a 5-year plan that we're trying to roll out, and so we're trying to work 18 months ahead. But here already we're trying to actually just do small things, and by introducing things to the community. I will be coming in March and April. I will be advertising some adult classes for people to learn how to better cycle in town, because I'll tell you, some cyclists do not follow the rules. I'm sad to say. And so I want to make sure that they understand that, but also for them to learn where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to behave, so that motorists understand that. So those kind of courses are coming, and we'll also be talking to the local schools about introducing and working with them. Because there are already some things happening, so we just want to enhance that.
Any further questions for the delegation? Do you have an outline of the of your workshop?
No.
You don't have that?
No, not yet, because the date wasn't set yet. But we will present that.
Would you send me an outline when you have
absolutely.
it? Thank you. Any further questions from members of council for the delegation? Thanks very much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members of council, we have 2 pieces of correspondence tonight. The first piece of correspondence is a request for funding from the Vancouver Island North Film Commission, and the recommendation is for
Thank you, Sam.
a request for funding in the amount of $10,000 for the year 2017 be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion on that. Vote. Okay, discussion. Councillor Patterson and then Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll have to forgive me if I cut out. My voice is a little off. I know that we have supported this organization in the past, not always every year. So through you to our CEO or our Director of Finance, could I get an amount that we've donated in the past?
We donated $5,000 last year, as far as I remember.
$5,000 in 2016.
It was $2,500 the year before, I'm advised.
Just a little follow-up. Last week I attended the Qualicum Beach Community Awards, and the guest speaker was the producer from Chesapeake Shores, who gave a little bit of a financial background on just that one production that was in the Oceanside area. And he broke it down to basic that it worked out to approximately $58,000 a day that they spend, that goes back into the community when they're filming. And they will be doing another, I'm not sure if it's 8 shows or 10 shows, and that have already been ready to go, and that this spring. So we are getting, to a degree. I just wonder, like many other organizations, that I'm sure that the RDN and the town of Qualicum Beach will be getting requests and everything as well. I'm very much supportive of this request. I'm just not quite so sure on the amount.
Councillor Oates.
The motion is to receive it. I'm more of I would like to actually make a funding amount to that, so I'm not going to speak to this part. I'll make a subsequent motion later.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have a lengthy discussion at the last council meeting about people and organizations coming forward requesting funding? And didn't one of the things that we said, I believe there was a motion put forward that we would like to see some sort of an accounting, financial statement where the money's going. And so I find it interesting that tonight we're having this put forward. And I wouldn't support a motion with any dollar amount attached at this point until I saw their financial statements.
Thank you. Any further comments on this item? Because I'm going to call the motion to receive, then we'll deal with something else. Councillor? Okay, all those in favor of receiving the recommendation? Thank you. That is carried.
Yes, I move that the City of Parksville grant a funding request of an amount of $5,000 to Vancouver Island North Film Commission.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Beale seconds the motion. Councillor Oates, do you want to talk to it?
I'd like to speak to that. The number that Councillor Patterson mentioned earlier there, $58,000 a day, is a significant number. The detail that Stephanie has put in the letter there about what the impact that it brings to the community, I think is enough for me to. It was enough for me to support it last year, and it's certainly enough for me to support it this year. I think that this type of exposure is a good value for $5,000. I would be willing to support the full funding request. However, I don't think that support is around this council table. So rather than give them nothing, I would support the amount of $5,000 because I believe we got good bang for our buck last year.
Further comments, Councillor Burden.
Yeah, further to Councillor Powell's comments, these kinds of requests that come forward, I know that the report from staff hasn't come back yet with regard to establishing criteria, but at the same time it would be somewhat hypocritical of me, who led that discussion around providing reasons for the funding and backup information with regard to the organization around the funding. It would be kind of hypocritical of me to support it, so I won't be.
Any further comments? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. This is a question really to the CAO or other knowledgeable people here at the table. Would it be appropriate to have a friendly amendment adding a request for the financial information from this group?
I don't think that would be. Would that be an amendment, or it sounds like it's another motion before we would agree to the 5,000?
Well, Your Worship, the question I guess I would have is, does the $5,000 depend on receiving the financials, or are you granting the $5,000 but asking for the financials afterwards?
Thank you. In this particular case, given the amount of in-depth information we have received in the past and the nature of the organization, I would simply be wanting to ask for that information after the fact.
Okay, that's fairly clear. Anybody else got any comments? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. I guess I supported what Councillor Burden came forward with last council meeting about having some sort of accountability. And while I can understand the desire of some people on council to put this forward for the $5,000, I think if we make a rule for one organization, then we need to make the same rule for the following organization. And so if that is the case, maybe we should bring back the other ones that requested money and change that rule as well. So I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Bird.
I think Councillor Beale's moving in the right direction, and maybe we can. I don't know what the urgency of this request is, and possibly that we could contact Infilm and ask them to provide us with the information that we're looking for and bring it back at a future council meeting.
When I got the letter, frankly, that was my inclination, but I wanted to bring it to council because I just got the letter a short while ago. So at the end of January, beginning of this month. So
I know we're on the cusp of
I got it after the
changing
last
our
council
approach,
meeting.
and it's kind of difficult, but like I said, it's difficult. I support what they're doing. I think they're a tremendous contributor to our community economically, and I really do support it. But it would be difficult for me to support this kind of request after the discussion that we had at the last council meeting.
Would the mover change the move?
Nope. I want to speak to. I want to speak to my. I don't believe that there was a seconder to that amendment, and I don't consider it a friendly amendment, so it would have to be done like that. But going back to the notion of whether or not we have enough information to read a request, to view a request, and the letter from the proponent speaks to when we're going to get a report on what they did. And if you read your package, you should know that. And it speaks to about how Creative BC is going to be, they're going to deliver the report to Creative BC for the inclusion in the 2016 Provincial Film Production Report, which will be released by the province. Shortly following that announcement, we'll provide our year information and highlights to our community funding partners. So if you want to take a principled approach on a policy or a report that we have not seen yet, by all means, go at it. But I believe that we have enough information here to say that for the $5,000, the taxpayers of Parksville are getting good value for their money. I think that anything other than that is playing politics.
Okay, any further comments? If not, I'm going to call the vote. And the motion again is to just $5,000.
The council approve a grant of $5,000 to the Vancouver Island North Film Commission.
And the proponent of the motion is saying that we'll get a report anyway at some point in time.
I'm not saying that. I'm reading what was in our packages.
I
That's
agree.
what it says.
It's in the letter, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Well, let me do that again. How many are opposed? 3 opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, the next piece of correspondence comes from the Regional District of Nanaimo regarding the Regional Growth Strategy. And I want to, before I ask for a recommendation, I want to elaborate on the motion. If Council wishes to accept this bylaw as presented by the RDN, you can amend the resolution to receive with the following. And I don't think you have that, and I have it on my paper here. And I'll read that to you if you'll allow me. That the Council of the City of Parksville accepts the amended Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 161501, 2016 as presented, and that the Regional District of Nanaimo be notified accordingly. So I would you agree to make that motion? Okay, I have a mover and a seconder by Councillor Powell. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Burden.
I just have one question. Having read through the material with regard to the implementation, I don't see an opportunity for a second public consultation process. Am I missing something?
You mean in the Regional Growth Strategy?
Normally with the Regional Growth Strategy, they would do a first reading, and then they would go to a public hearing, and then they would go to second reading and the various statutory pieces that follow. But I don't see that. They're changing the Regional Growth Strategy, and I don't see an opportunity for the public to have any input as they normally would. And I'm just asking the question, is it in there and I'm missing it?
It's in there. It's certainly in there.
There will be another public hearing?
They only have one public hearing.
And it's been held?
And it's been held. That's my understanding.
So there's no public hearing on the amended...
Director of Admin.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Burden. I believe one of the things the Regional District does differently is they often will have public information meetings, which are not required by the legislation, but they're just information and engagement. And the Local Government Act requires just a public hearing for adopting a Regional Growth Strategy bylaw. I do believe there's been quite a bit of consultation with the planning departments in the various communities as well, which counts towards consultation per the legislation. But I'll have to check on whether they did a public information meeting, but they typically do for almost all cases. I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
And Your Worship, this is a particularly minor amendment that was just at the request of Qualicum Beach. It's not a...
Everybody else?
Yeah. Basically, that's what it is.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay, we have some reports this evening. First report is the 2017 Sanitary Sewer Utility and Parcel Tax Rates. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mr. Butterworth, would you please give us the background on these issues? On this issue, excuse me.
Yes, if I may, Your Worship.
The other issue.
This report regards to the sanitary sewer rates. The 5-year financial plan we have, it included a 5% rate increase for 2017 to the sanitary sewer rates. Budget surpluses over the last few years, along with several years of 5% increases, have now increased the accumulated surplus sufficiently to reduce the rate increase to 3% for 2017. And the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Any questions for Mr. Butterworth? Pretty straightforward. I have a mover and a seconder. I thought I did. No, I need a mover and a seconder. I'm sorry. I did. Yeah. Yes, I did. I have a mover and a seconder.
Councillor Bird.
Oh. Okay. Okay. I'm going to. If there's no questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That's the 4 recommendations. The next report, again, Mr. Butterworth, the 2017 water utility and parcel tax rates. I need a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Burton. Mr. Butterworth, once again, please.
Yes, if I may, Your Worship. So this report is in regards to the water user rates. Our 5-year financial plan includes a 2.5% rate increase for 2017. Water restrictions and water and user conservation over the last few years has led to a $136,000 revenue shortfall in 2016. However, in analyzing our 2016 statements for the water fund, unspent operating expenses more than offset the revenue shortfall. So the 2.5% increase should be sufficient to maintain the water reserves. The recommendation is as per the agenda.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Butterworth on the water utility and parcel tax rates? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the recommendations? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Next report is the proposed new privacy policies. Do I have a mover and a seconder for their 3 recommendations? Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Powell. Ms. Kaler, would you please give us the background on these issues?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as Council may be aware, the City is subject to the Provincial Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And at the moment, we do not have explicit policies that state that we are adhering to the principles outlined in that legislation. The Office of the Privacy Commissioner puts out guides and best practices for local governments to follow. And the City's, the 2 attached policies have been designed to comply with the provincial requirements, and recommendations are per the agenda.
Questions? Yes, Ms. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Director of Administrative Services. So we're going to put a whole bunch of surveillance cameras up. What's the cost of that? The CCTV?
So through, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Powell, the cameras are already in place.
Oh, okay.
In all but 2
I didn't
of
know
the
that.
facilities.
You've been spying on us all this time.
So the costs they vary depending on the equipment, but an average would be a couple of $1,000s for the cameras, and then the software is relatively cheap to install. And our Director of Operations and the IT department have been working together with the facilities management team to place them in the appropriate locations to minimize any privacy impacts, but to protect our facilities and our staff. So there will be 2 more cameras coming, which you can see in the attached report just have a TBD on them as to exactly the location, but they are intended to be at the entrances to PCTC.
Yes, follow up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have an opportunity to speak with the CAO prior to the meeting, and it was my understanding that we were just going to be surveilling just in here because we've got homeless people sleeping in here and maybe putting their stuff in here to keep it safe. And so I was surprised, why do we have the cameras? And you say the cameras have already been there. Did they have tape in them? Were we actually recording? Okay. I was just surprised to see where they were located.
Mrs. Gomez, you want to comment?
Yes, Your Worship. There's a difference between the cameras that we are putting in the general area at the entranceways to the ones that we have in the departments and at the public works yard as well. So those were put in for safety reasons for city staff. Believe it or not everyone is terribly happy with us all the time. And we had some instances where people were threatening and yelling and even in some cases using their canes to threaten staff. And as a result, since we've put in the cameras, those incidents have been substantially reduced. So from that perspective, yes, there is genuine recording taking place. We have met all of the requirements of the provincial legislation with respect to the privacy in terms of who has access and when they are accessed, and for the length of time that they're kept, because they are recorded over after time. Yeah. And we have the monitors up there so people can see that they're on camera. Just very similar to the, very similar to the banks. It's a system that, it's very similar to the bank.
So watch out when you're making faces at the mayor, and the mayor will see you. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions? Seeing, Councillor Oates.
So not all the cameras currently exist, that's correct. So the 3 that don't exist are the ones at the entrances to the building's entrance. So given we have other stakeholders in there, what's their share of this cost?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Oates. Mike Squire, who's our Director of Operations, is currently working with the building owners, and we are actually going to we have a safety committee for the entire building, which is why those cameras are not in place yet. We're just working out any concerns and talking to the other building owners about what type of recording system they would like and the exact location. I didn't want to hold up this policy coming to council because we really should have this policy in place given that we have existing cameras. So when we have that sorted out with the other partners, we will bring back an amendment to this Schedule A. And I'll make sure I bring the costs as well at that time.
Yeah, a couple more. So that takes care of the other stakeholders. How about the various, the different unions that are here? Have they been advised that their members are going to be recorded when they're coming and going?
Yes, Your Worship. When we were initially bringing cameras into the buildings and into public works, we took it to our labor management committee. The other owners in the building are also aware and would be expected to work with their unions themselves, but our union has certainly been part of the process and are aware of all of the cameras in all of the locations and the policies surrounding them.
So if I understand it correctly, we have cameras in place right now and no policy to back up having those cameras in place. So perhaps we should not have the cameras on until the policy is approved?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Oates. So the best practices under the guides with the Office of the Privacy Commissioner recommend strongly that policies be in place if the surveillance is in place. So there's not a legislative requirement that we have the policy, but it was recommended that in order to prove or provide some kind of assurance as to how the city is meeting the FOIPA or FIPA requirements in the legislation, that we would explicitly lay that out in policy, and also provide clear direction if someone, for example, wanted to access the footage for some reason. At the moment, we do obviously have procedures there, but they're not laid out in policy, so they could be inconsistent. They could change as people move through the different positions, and so providing policy is recommended as a best practice. We weren't in breach of the legislation for not having the policy, but it's recommended that we have it.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, in this day and age, I think most of us recognize that we're being monitored and we're surveilled most of the time. Where I work, I'm monitored by what I'm doing on my computer. They can listen in on my phone calls if they wish. There's cameras at all the entrances inside. It's a reality of the times. So I have no issue with, I'm surprised that it took this long. I assumed they were already there. So I have no issue with this at all.
On that note, if there's no other further comments or questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Once again, we have a revision to policy 7.19. Ms. Scaler, would you please give us... Oh, I need a mover and a seconder before moving on. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Ms. Scaler. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, you are.
Kaler?
Taylor. Rhymes with Taylor.
Kaler, thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks. So this is an existing policy that we've had in place for about 7 years. And as policies are used over time, there are things that come up that require some clarification. A number of items are requested to be clarified in this proposed amendment, including clarifying the maximum number of days that an employee can earn an earned day off under this program, and also providing a cap on the number of hours that an employee would accrue in each pay period. We also wanted to provide consistency across different departments so that every person who is participating in the program is participating in the same manner, and therefore we added clarification that coffee breaks are not to be used. We think it's important that staff take breaks throughout the day and not burn themselves out by trying to earn extra time. And so the recommendations for these amendments are per the agenda.
Questions for the Director of Administrative Services? Councillor Oates.
I don't have a copy of the old one compared to the new one, so can you just point out where the revisions are?
Yes. So just bear with me a second. So the first one was, I believe, under provision 7. I'm going to have to go from memory now, but under the flexible work arrangement, so under type-specific procedures on page 49, that's where the earned day off begins. So under, so essentially, sorry, I got to find which numbers it was here. We added in that the maximum number of days per year, sorry, number 1. Oh yeah, sorry, not number 7. Number 7 was amended too, I think. So the first one was we added in the wording about there being a maximum of 17 or 18 days per year that could be taken in this program. That was not included in there before. And that is based on a 3-week rotation. And so if somebody starts, it could be 18 days one year, but it would be 17 the next. And that's also based on the employee working a full year. So if somebody had an extended absence for maternity leave or something like that, that would be less. We also amended number 3. Used to say that number 2 used to say that the time had to be earned between 7:30 and 4:30, and so now we're saying should normally fall between those hours, because again, we wanted to give some flexibility. If somebody wanted to come in at 7 for a particular reason, that would be fine. What else did we change here? So there was another clause here where we realized that in some cases, if you're acting in a different position and there's an EDO that happens, you actually do get your acting pay. So we wanted to clarify that unless you're acting and getting additional pay, your coverage for the EDO, like basically what we're trying to say is that we wouldn't bring somebody in or have them be acting just for your EDO being off. So that was added. And then the other, in number 5, we were providing a little bit more flexibility to allow someone to switch an EDO. So for example, if you had an appointment that couldn't be changed, like a kid's play or something like that, you could switch from, say you typically take a Friday, but that particular week it was a Wednesday, you could, with the mutual agreement, you could switch that day for that particular period. And then the next one was item number 6. We didn't previously have a cap on the number of hours, and so it was never intended that these hours be banked, to give somebody 2 or 3 days extra vacation. So we wanted to clarify that after 14 hours, we need to talk to our staff and say, you need to take this time. And after 21 hours, we would essentially not allow the person to contribute anymore because it's not in the spirit of the policy. So that's a new clause there. And that is pretty much it, I believe. And then the coffee breaks was added in as well.
Okay, thank you. There was a time, if the mayor can speak, there was a time, I had this discussion with the director of the CAO a few weeks ago. There was a time when I was in the operational side of the business where I didn't go for this, but I like the new resolutions subject to operational requirements. I can live with it. There was a time when I didn't. And I wasn't very well liked for doing it. All right, I'm going to call the vote if there's no more questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. I just thought I'd say that. Thought you'd want to know that. All right. The next is the Goose Management Resolution to the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, the conference which is coming up shortly. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Oates. Mrs. Comas, would you please give us the background on this issue?
Yes, Your Worship. For some time now, the Guardians of Mid-Island Estuary and the regional governments have been working to discuss the impact of the overpopulation of Canada geese, not just here in Parksville, but in areas from Campbell River south. And it has come to the point now where, with respect to the management practices, we've come to the realization that a coordinated effort amongst all of the local governments is preferable than one municipality going off and doing it on their own. There are certainly financial benefits to a coordinated effort, and the reality is that wherever the geese are managed or harvested, as they're now calling it, it has a benefit for everyone. So the City of Nanaimo has expressed a willingness to coordinate regional meetings. We haven't worked out all of the terms and conditions, but after my meeting with them, I suggested that Council, because they have supported initiatives in the past, may wish to take forward a resolution to the AVICC to ask for support for a regional concerted effort in goose management. The recommendations and the motion for submission are as per the staff report.
Okay, any questions for Mrs. Comas? Fairly straightforward. Seeing no questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Mrs. Comas, I'll use the notes in the report to address this at AVICC when the time comes?
Yes, Your Worship, and we have to submit the report and the background information with the resolution.
Okay.
So it will all be published in their resolution book.
Thank you.
Point of information. I didn't catch the vote on that. Was that a unanimous vote?
It was. And we have 3 readings. We have 4 bylaws for 3 readings this evening. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Beale. Are there any comments on this particular 3 readings for these bylaws? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. All right. I have some new business, but just before I go into new business and go around the table, I want to say something special to our editor of the PQ News, who's leaving us, who's going way up north. So thank you for your reporting. Thank you for your criticism. I mean, I believe that the press is very, very important. Some people south of the border don't, but I believe the press is a key element in our society, and hopefully will continue to do so. So we wish you well, sir. And you're not that far, well, you're far enough away, you won't be able to get here too quickly, but drop by from time to time and let us know what's going on in the Great North. Good luck. And I know it's a promotion. You're no longer publisher, you're no longer editor, you're publisher. Congratulations. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to start off and just go over quickly before I go around the table. I want to remind everybody in the audience and everybody that's watching that the firefighters are going to be recruiting volunteers for the fire department. If residents are interested in learning more about being an on-call firefighter, I encourage you to drop by the fire hall to speak with one of our officers. Information is also available on the Parksville Fire Department and city websites. Secondly, coldest night of the year, that I know that you're going to be talking about that?
Well, that's what I was thinking of.
All right, I'll turn it over to you when the time comes. You can talk about coldest night of the year. I wanted to point out that the Chamber of Commerce Week is this week, February 20th to February 24th, and this has been declared Chamber of Commerce Week in Parksville. Anybody in the audience from the Chamber of Commerce other than who's sitting around the table? Okay. Toastmasters also, I'm pleased to advise that February, at the request of the Arbutus Toastmasters Club, was proclaimed as Toastmasters Month in Parksville. Toastmasters, as we all know, helps people develop essential communication and leadership skills. The other item I wanted to remind everybody about is Forward House. Residents are invited to attend a dessert tour and talk at Forward House on March the 2nd and March the 23rd, and a chance to see what the great work that they do for the community. And budget meetings, very important for everybody to note. Budget meetings are scheduled for March the 15th and March the 29th. Beware the Ides of March. Please check the city's website for information on how you can participate in this discussion. And finally, the city has engaged a Master of Community Park Planning program students to undertake the Community Park Master Plan and Park Survey. The first event, and we met this group from VIU last week, a really interesting and highly interested and highly qualified group. The first event is set for Saturday, March the 4th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Students will be at a number of locations in Parksville: the Community Park, Post Office, Quality Foods, and along the Alberni Highway in downtown Parksville to engage with residents, to talk about what our residents would like to see for the future of the city parks. So that's it for me. I think it is. I'm going to go around the table, and I'm going to start off with Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, I mentioned at our last council meeting, the District 69 Recreation Committee, that a household questionnaire will be coming out very soon in the mail. So I urge everyone to fill it out. It's about 8 pages, but it's very large print. It's not small print. A lot of checking off boxes, and so it's a great opportunity to get a wide variety of responses back from the community, and not just any particular group, from arts to bicycles to swimming to curling to a great variety of activities in the area. So that's one. As I also mentioned before, I attended the Qualicum Beach Community Awards, and the speaker was the director from Chesapeake's Shores. But on that note, I also wanted to mention that BIU, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, did a bunch of filming at Top Bridge for the Amazing Places. If you haven't seen it, it is absolutely amazing. And my other mention, and that is the NBA games tomorrow, and I'm not sure who on council will be attending in Nanaimo. Perfect. And on that note, my next recreation meeting is on Wednesday, and I'll have some more information coming forward after that. But I wanted to talk just half a second on the ENN Open, the Coombs to Parksville Rail Trail, and that's now been very much open. and it's been very popular in the last few weeks, and especially with all ages, from the youth that I'm involved with at Bolinas to seniors to accessibility as well. And I expect that once all our little snow is gone, that it'll be more used. And the grand opening is being planned for late April or early May. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a lot. I've been under the weather quite miserably the last couple of weeks, so I'm more irritable than usual. But one thing that I think I need to raise, it's important, and I've circulated it with Council, and Council is already aware of this, but I think it's important that I put it into public record, and that was Council's continued concerns with the revenue shortfalls from the community center. And the meeting that I attended last week, the information that was provided and has been distributed to Council and perused by our Director of Finance indicates that for last quarter they were $21,700 under budget on what their revenue projections were, and for the total year they were $47,000 under budget. Those are significant numbers, and you know, when I looked at their booking, they have a whiteboard over there. There's not a lot of empty holes where they can fit more people in, other people in there. So I'm not a coordinator, event planner. I don't know those things. But when they hold that up and they show me where else can we put things in there, there's not a lot of empty holes there. What I do understand is the amount of money that the taxpayers put into that facility and the amount of money that they're shortfall under revenues. And I just wanted to bring it to, I just want to make the public aware that we are continued to be concerned about the revenue shortfalls there. And I think that $50,000 under budget in revenue projections, $47,000 is not a slight miss. That's a big miss. On another totally unrelated note, I just wanted to bring staff aware. I've spoken with the CAO about it, and they're very well aware, but I just want to publicly speak about it, and that's the Supreme Court decision that came down on the 17th of February, whereby municipalities have been given the ability to regulate marijuana dispensaries. Staff of the CAO has indicated to me that they're aware of this decision, they're looking at it, and they will be providing some sort of analysis for us in the future. This is something I think we need to get ahead of. I believe there's many different schools of thought on this. I believe there's a revenue stream there that we might be able to tap into, and let's make sure that we're not missing out on any of that. As long as we're on the right side of the law, we're good. Other than that, that's all that I have. Thank you.
That's a good point. That's something that we should all get ready to tap into, because it'll be a source of revenue, no doubt, if we look at what's happening in the United States where they've legalized recreational marijuana. And that's supposed to come in Canada. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I don't have anything to report.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, following up on Councillor Patterson's comments, that the official opening tentatively is for that Springwood Park Trail to Coombs Country Market is going to be tentatively May the 13th. So we'll let you know more about that. Councillor B.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a couple of things. First of all, I did wear a pink shirt today, although it's not Wednesday, February 22nd, which is a day to mark anti-bullying, which doesn't mean we shouldn't be also practicing, you know, no bullying and supporting, being supportive of positive actions every other day. But it is a day when we bring special focus to the topic. And although this is an older shirt, so the slogan is not necessarily what you might see around town or in the schools this year, it is the slogan is to make nice. as in encouraging everyone to treat others with kindness and with compassion, and that when we do that, it is a more positive environment, and not only does that give great benefit for those who receive your kindness and your compassion, but we in fact benefit from that as well when we do behave towards others in that way. So I just wanted to wear the pink shirt to remind people that that is this week, and I hope that we will all celebrate that. And I didn't bring my toque tonight. You know, I have bad hair days often enough, and believe me, the toque doesn't add to it. So I just brought other things because this Saturday is the walk for the coldest night of the year, although I'm hopeful that it won't be the coldest night of the year for our community. But February 25th, a really, really, really important fundraiser. And I just can't stress that enough. The funds that are raised during this walk for the Oceanside area go towards supporting an outreach worker, and it is so critical to have an outreach worker who is able to connect with clients, whether they be recently housed, you know, housing first. It doesn't end with housing, and also connecting with those who remain homeless, hopefully for a temporary time. But this outreach worker is really, really important to build connections, to help clients get the services and maintain some services, and just support them along the way to greater independence and success. And our homelessness task force and the host team working with clients has been successful in housing over 40 individuals over the past period of time, not just over the past year, and the success rate has been phenomenal. It's in the 90+%. So these individuals have been really successful. It would not happen without an outreach worker. And unfortunately, grants do not provide for any funding for that position. So it must be raised with the funds that come in from this walk. And I think we're still far short of that target. So if you go online, coldestnightoftheyear.ca or cnoy.ca, you'll find it, and just find location Oceanside, Parksville, and you can donate to any team. Mine happens to be called Gimme Shelter, a little plug. I think we're in third place. It'd be nice to bump up to second. But you could, or come out and walk yourself. But please, please, please consider a donation. It's really, really important for the work that's being done here.
Thanks very much, and congratulations for doing that. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I attended the meeting at the Parksville Museum on the 17th. And just a few things. The Gorge East Festival will be happening on the 29th of July at the museum. They're going to be attending the Burnaby Museum on March 1st, just to get an idea on how that museum delivers services, how they provide programs. They're going to take a tour of the village and kind of get an idea about how things go on in the background. So they're quite excited about that. A 2-year Here We Grow program is being offered at the museum through the agriculture program. So there's 12 hours of instruction to learn how to do organic gardening. I think there's 3 different levels of the organic gardening, but that's the first level. And basically it was really to promote self-reliance. Basically, Vancouver Island, you know, we've got a 3-day supply. As we know, if there was an emergency, so it's sort of to help people have something in their backyards or nearby, so that if something, you know, were to happen, they would have food. They're always looking for memberships at the museum, so that's a plug. And Betty, the treasurer, is doing a fantastic job with the finances. I just had to say that they actually earned over 10% on one of their investments just recently. They're doing really well. They're bringing, actually, there's a fellow from BMO, and he's coming in to speak to the staff, but they're doing very well. So I just wanted to say that, and it's a pleasure working with them. So that's my report.
Thank you. And you sent us the President's report, which shows that they're
Yes.
being very busy and outreaching quite a bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Burton.
I attended the meeting of the Access Oceanside Association last February the 8th, and they are a very busy group, working on a number of projects, including emergency preparedness, working to develop some maps of where the accessible parking spots are. They're doing some interesting, got a good idea with regard to the Beach Fest group with seeking to get their cooperation to provide a day where people that are visually impaired could go down and enjoy those sculptures. They're doing some homework with regard to their organization to make sure that they're in line with the Societies Act, and they're also working to see what they can do about becoming, having the ability to provide tax receipts to have charitable status so that they can become a little bit more independent in their operation. So good work all around, and it was a pleasure to be there.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
My apologies, but when Councillor Salter started speaking about her meeting and then Councillor Burden, I also, the Beach Fest is part of my responsibilities. Prior to their latest meeting, I submitted a request from council as to any issues that they wanted me to bring forward to Beach Fest, and the issue of noise complaints from the summer concert series was one that was identified that I bring forward to those folks. I can confirm that Beach Fest has received the same 2 complaints from the same 2 people that council have received. And I asked our CAO at our last meeting or a couple of meetings ago, have we received any complaints here at bylaw with respect to noise down there? And the answer that time was no, we haven't. So what I think I've discovered, or what I've been able to evidence, is that yes, there are complaints about the noise, and it's limited to 2 people, and I believe they're husband and wife.
Thank you. Well, at least they're together. Okay. On that note, thank you everybody for the update. We're going to go into, I need a mover and a seconder to go into close pursuant to section 91E of the Community Charter. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Burden. All those in favor? We're going to take a 5-minute break. What do you got there?